Buying a house had always been my dream. It wasn't just about having a roof over my head. It was about independence, about proving to myself that I could take control of my life. After years of saving, working overtime, and making sacrifices, I finally did it. I bought a house, my house. It wasn't the biggest house on the block, but it was mine, and it felt like a huge accomplishment. It felt like freedom. I remember walking through the door for the first time, feeling a rush of pride. The moment I held the keys, it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For years, I had been living in a cramped apartment with my husband, Tom, who had always insisted that we should wait until we could afford a real house. But I was tired of waiting. I had done the research, the budgeting, and the work. I knew I could make it work, and I wasn't going to let his constant doubts hold me back anymore. Tom, on the other hand, didn't seem as thrilled as I expected him to be. He was happy for me, of course, but there was a strange, unsettling look on his face. I tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the excitement of moving in, unpacking my things, and turning this place into a home. But there was an underlying tension I couldn't shake. It wasn't until a week later that I saw a side of Tom I hadn't expected. I had just finished arranging the living room when he walked in, looking unusually serious. He stood there for a moment, eyeing the furniture I had spent hours arranging. Finally, he spoke. "This is nice," he said, but there was something in his voice that didn't sound like praise. It sounded more like disappointment? Confusion? "Thanks," I said, trying to keep the conversation light. "I'm really happy with it. It feels like everything's falling into place." But then he hit me with a statement that completely caught me off guard. "You know," he started, "I've been thinking. Maybe we should sell this place and buy something bigger, something more expensive. I think you've outdone yourself, but it's not exactly what I had in mind for us." I froze. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. I had worked so hard for this house, and now he was suggesting we get rid of it? The house I had bought with my own savings, the one I had carefully chosen, was suddenly not good enough for him? Not good enough for us? "Wait, what?" I asked, my voice a little shaky. "Are you serious right now? I just bought this house, Tom. I've spent years saving for it. You think I should just sell it?" Tom shrugged, looking almost indifferent. "Yeah, I think you should sell it, and we can upgrade to something that fits our lifestyle better. I'm thinking something in a fancier neighborhood with a pool, maybe. Something that's more luxurious." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. Luxurious? We were barely making it work in the apartment, and now he wanted to sell my hard-earned dream for something bigger and more extravagant? I couldn't believe it. I had worked so hard for this house, and now he was dismissing it like it was just a temporary stop along the way to something bigger and better. But I wasn't going to let him dictate how I felt about my achievements. I wasn't going to let him disrespect the dream I had made a reality. I stood there, taking in what he had just said, and then something inside me clicked. If he wanted to teach me a lesson about expectations, then maybe it was time for me to teach him one about respect. I stood there trying to process what Tom had just said. Luxurious, he called it. The house that I had worked so hard to buy, worked late nights, saved every penny, and pushed myself beyond my limits, was suddenly just a stepping stone to something else. Something bigger, something that would fit Tom's vision of what our life should look like. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I wasn't going to let him treat my accomplishment as though it was nothing. For the first time in a long time, I decided to take control. If he thought he could just waltz in and demand something bigger, I would show him that my dream meant more than any luxury he imagined. "I don't think you understand, Tom," I said, keeping my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside me. "This house is my dream. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about me having something to call my own, something I worked for. You can't just decide to sell it because it's not up to your standards." Tom, sensing the tension in the air, tried to downplay it. "I'm just thinking about our future," he said, his voice slightly defensive. "We should be thinking long-term. It's not just about what we need now, but about having the right kind of life. This place is nice, but it's not—" "Not good enough?" I interrupted, cutting him off. I was done listening to his excuses. You think I don't know that? This place might not be the biggest house on the block, but it's everything I've wanted. It's not about luxury. It's about earning something and being proud of it. He blinked, looking a little surprised by my response. He was used to being the one who called the shots, but today, I wasn't going to let that happen. I had always been the one to make compromises for his wishes, but this time, I wasn't compromising on something that meant so much to me. This wasn't just about a house, it was about my independence, my self-worth, and my ability to make decisions on my own terms. You know, Tom, maybe it's time we have a real conversation about our expectations, I continued, the words coming more easily now. I've always supported your goals and dreams, but it seems like you don't see the value in mine. This house isn't just a place for me, it's a symbol of everything I've worked for. I'm not going to let you dismiss that just because it's not what you envisioned. If you can't see that, then maybe we need to talk about where we stand in this relationship. There was a long pause and Tom stood there, mouth slightly open, seemingly unsure of what to say next. He hadn't expected me to stand up for myself like this, not after all the years of going along with his decisions. But this time, something had shifted inside me. I had put up with enough. It was time for him to understand that my dreams mattered too. Tom's face softened, and for the first time in a while, I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I didn't mean to make you feel like that, he said, his voice quieter now. I guess I got carried away. I just thought that maybe this wasn't the end goal for us. I didn't realize how much this house meant to you. I crossed my arms, taking a deep breath. It's not just about the house, Tom. It's about respect. You think you can just come in here and tell me to sell it, and I'll go along with it. Well, I won't. I've worked hard for this, and if you can't respect that, we have a bigger problem than what kind of house we're living in. He took a step back, looking a little taken aback by my words. I could tell that he was realizing how deeply I felt about this, and maybe for the first time he was truly hearing me. I'm sorry, he said finally. You're right. I shouldn't have dismissed your feelings. Let's figure out what really matters and go from there. We'll make it work together. I nodded, but I knew this was only the beginning. The truth was, it wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about boundaries and mutual respect. I wasn't going to let him undermine my dreams or make me feel small again. It was time for us to have a real conversation about what we both wanted and about how we could build a life together where we both felt heard and valued. As the conversation ended, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. I had stood my ground, and for the first time, I felt like I had a voice in our relationship. The lesson had been taught, and Tom would never forget this moment. It was time for him to recognize the strength in me, in my dreams, and in the life I had worked so hard to build. The days following that conversation were tense. Tom tried to make it up to me in small ways, helping out around the house more, offering to go out for dinner, and even suggesting we take a weekend trip to reconnect. But nothing felt quite right. I had spoken up, and though he had apologized, I wasn't sure if he truly understood the depth of what had happened. The issue wasn't just about a house. It wasn't just about the luxury or the size or the fancy neighborhood he dreamed about. It was about respect. It was about feeling like I mattered, like my efforts weren't just brushed aside. I had worked hard for this house, for my independence, for everything I had built. I wasn't going to let that be dismissed. Over the next few weeks, we began talking more openly. At first, it was awkward. Tom was still trying to figure out how to support my dream while pursuing his own. I was patient with him, but the underlying issue still lingered. I had realized that this wasn't just about Tom making one mistake. It was about a pattern of behavior where his vision had always dominated. I had always been the one to compromise, and it had led to me feeling small, insignificant in some ways. That needed to change. I started spending more time on my own. I didn't just focus on the house, but on myself. I began pursuing interests that had long been pushed aside, small projects around the house that I had put off, hobbies that had always been important to me but were set aside for more important things. I started to feel like myself again. I began to remember why I bought the house in the first place. It wasn't just about having a place to live, it was about freedom, and I was not going to let that slip away. One afternoon, as I was finishing up a small renovation project in the backyard, Tom came outside. He looked at the freshly painted bench, the neatly trimmed garden, and the little touches I had added that made the space mine. For the first time in a long time, he looked at me with a different kind of understanding in his eyes. "This looks amazing," he said softly. "You've put so much into this place." I smiled, proud of my work, but also feeling a deeper sense of pride for what it represented. "It's not just about the house, Tom," I said, turning to face him. "It's about what this place represents for me. I've worked for everything in this house, and I want you to understand that it's more than just a place to live. It's about my independence, my dreams. And I need you to respect that." He nodded slowly, a hint of regret in his expression. "I know," he said, his voice softening. "And I haven't respected that. I've been so focused on what I wanted that I didn't stop to see what you needed. I've been selfish. I'm sorry." I could see he was genuinely remorseful, but I knew that this was only the beginning. Apologies were just words. The real test would be in his actions moving forward, but in that moment, something shifted between us. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about us learning how to meet in the middle, how to compromise without compromising each other's dreams. "I appreciate the apology, Tom," I said, my voice steady but gentle. "But it's going to take more than just saying sorry. We need to really understand each other, communicate better, and make sure we both feel heard." He stepped closer, taking my hand in his. "I promise I'll do better. I won't make you feel like this again. You deserve more than that." I nodded, squeezing his hand. I wasn't ready to fully trust him again, not yet. But I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild this on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. This wasn't going to be an easy road, but I was willing to try, if he was willing to change. That night, as we sat down to dinner, the atmosphere felt different. It wasn't perfect, but it was the beginning of a new chapter. We both knew that this conversation, this decision to work through our differences, was the start of something important. And even though I had just bought a house, I realized that it wasn't the house that mattered most. It was the relationship we were building within it. The weeks that followed were a slow but steady process of rebuilding trust and understanding. Tom and I started to find common ground. We had tough conversations, moments of vulnerability, and even some disagreements, but I noticed something different. He was no longer dismissive of my dreams, and I wasn't willing to ignore his anymore. We were starting to communicate better, something we hadn't done in a long time. Tom took small but significant steps to show that he truly respected me and my hard work. He helped out around the house more, taking on projects I had been doing on my own. He even suggested we make long-term plans for the house, considering what I wanted for the future, not just the luxury he had initially imagined. It felt like we were finally working together, not against each other. One day, while we were having coffee on the back porch, looking at the garden I had lovingly cultivated, Tom turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You were right," he said, his voice sincere. "This house, it's your dream. I was too focused on the idea of luxury, but what's important is that this is where you found yourself. I should have seen that." I smiled, grateful that he was finally understanding what this house truly represented for me. "It's not about what it looks like on the outside, Tom. It's about what it means to me, what it means to us. This house is a symbol of all the things I've worked for and what I want for our future together. It's not about having the fanciest place. It's about having a place that feels right, that reflects who we are." He nodded, taking my hand. "And that's why I want to stay here, not because it's just a place to live, but because it's the place we built together. I understand now. I'm ready to make this our home, on our terms." It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but in that moment I knew we were heading in the right direction. We had both learned valuable lessons about compromise, respect, and truly understanding one another's needs. It wasn't about one person's dreams overpowering the others. It was about building something together. From that point on, Tom and I worked as a team. We turned our house into a home, but more importantly, we turned our relationship into something stronger, founded on mutual respect and support. We knew that the house itself wasn't the most important thing. It was the love, trust, and partnership that we built inside of it that mattered most.
And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't just part of the plan. I was leading it.